This is Platform Diaries with Shane Williams, who chews the fat with entrepreneurs, startup founders and thought leaders on what it takes to traverse the wall between startup and scale up.
So you're a founder who's hired a bunch of sellers to help you drive revenue and grow your business. Yet in reality, the business is still overly reliant on your ability to sell. Your sales team just isn't as effective as you, or as effective as you wish they were. You're listening to Platform Diaries, and I'm your host, Shane Williams. My guest today is Mark McInnes, sales capability consultant and founder of salesdev.com. We discuss why founder-led sales doesn't scale, the common mistakes that founders make in growing their sales capability, how to get it right, and Mark's simple 3-step method for unlocking revenue. I know you'll enjoy this interview. So Mark McInnes, thanks for joining me on Platform Diaries.
Shane, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You've had some great guests on in the past, so to join that list is indeed an honour. Thank you.
No worries. I mean, obviously, we have a very high bar, right? So you're welcome, and glad to have you on the show.
Well, I'm the bottom. This is this is the bottom of the barrel.
Arguably, it's this person on this side of the microphone, but we'll find out. So, why don't we jump straight in? Firstly, I guess what I'm really interested in is your opinion on, you're a startup going to scale up. You're trying to figure out what does that leap look like in terms of all the different capabilities across your business. But particularly, my question to you is, what's kind of the biggest mistakes you see founders making, if you like, in that transition from startup to scale up?
Yeah, good question. So I've been involved with a bunch of startups, both as an investor and as a sales leader over time. And, whether they be VC funded or whether they're bootstrapped or whatever the case may be. And the same sort of thing happens every time. And that is that founders are usually super passionate, right? So there's a very good reason why they've built this technology, or they've built the platform, or they've seen a niche in the market. They absolutely love it. They understand every nook and cranny about it. And they've basically come up with an idea of I can do this better than everybody else, right? So straight away, that's unusual. And what happens is they typically go on to start building their business and going to talk to other founders and other business owners. And, their first few customers come on maybe from their network. And what we see is that founders, they take on more risk than most businesses. And so the way that founders sell doesn't work when you go to train a sales team to scale your business. And the challenge that we see over and over again is founders will come out of a meeting with me and they'll say, Mark, I've got this sales team, they just can't sell. We've been into the business X amount of years, and every month I still need to make a certain amount of revenue to keep the business going. Why can't the team just sell like me? And the team can't sell like the founder because there's some significant differences about the way the founder talks about their business and sells their business, plus also the audience, which is often overlooked. And what happens is the founder then gets super frustrated because the sales team aren't doing what they want or what they want them to be doing. So let me get a little bit more granular on that for you. So if you think about a founder would typically go to another founder when they was talking about their business or trying to get their early customers. Okay. And as I said, founders themselves or business owners, and whether that be a CEO or whatever the case may be, they've typically got a high level of risk. So when Shane Williams comes to me and starts talking to me about his product and service and goes deep down into the nooks and crannies, down all the rabbit holes, and explains his product service and the governance issues, and I'm like, this guy knows his stuff at a much higher level than nearly anybody else. If I need your product or service, I'm going to take a bet on Shane, right? So look, we need a software like this. Let's just pretend it's CRM, right? So we need a CRM. There's 15 different ones that we can choose. Shane is clearly somebody that has thought about this at a higher level than anybody else. As a founder, I need to make a guess and buy one. Let's buy one from Shane. I like him and I trust him, right? So then Shane, who's the founder, takes his sales team out on his sales calls and says, see, follow my lead and then just do that. But the problem is that, first of all, they don't have that level of passion, even if they are industry professionals. And the other big challenge is that the founders will talk to the other founders or the other CEOs and be able to get access to those CEOs very easily through their authority and their network. But when a salesperson goes to have that same conversation, they're typically delegated down a little bit. So maybe they might open the front door and speak to the CEO, and the CEO will go, CRM, look, you know what? The COO is going to run that for us, or the head of ops or the general manager is going to run that for you. I'll provide an introduction to Darren, and he'll take over for you from there. Now, Darren, let's call him the economic buyer, doesn't have the same level of risk. What do you think Darren's number one risk challenge is in any particular role? What do you think he's focused on?
Well,
decision making.
It's not going to be CRM.
Let's not get fired.
Yeah.
Right? So the CEO, a founder doesn't think like that. They're thinking, we've got to make a guess, we've got to buy a CRM, we'll buy one. And Shane's coming to the table, sounds like he's an absolute subject matter expert. He's brought all of this stuff together that I hadn't even thought about. Let's go with him. That same methodology and that same way that we go to market's not going to work with Darren, because Darren's not focused on, let's just take a risk. He's focused on, how can we buy IBM, that old classic, and no one got sacked buying IBM, right? So that doesn't work. And that's the challenge. And so what happens is founders then start to talk about, well, it's this feature. Then you tell them about how we help them with this. And then they think de-risking is walking through as many scenarios as possible and telling them how good you are, right? Oh, so Darren's probably worried about how much adoption is going to be. Well, tell them about the onboarding feature that we've got, right? So then what happens is we start selling through features and benefits, and it just becomes like an ugly brochure. So I was lucky enough, or unlucky enough, this week, Shane, to get a pitch deck from a very large organisation. I won't embarrass them. You would know them. They are a large brand, international business. Their pitch deck has got 20 slides. The third slide is a full slide bio on their executive team, right? And the last slide talks about their customers.
Seems about backwards.
Definitely it's backwards. Right? But in between, it's all about, how big they were, how many different places they've got in the market. They're in their mind, when the marketing department's written this, they're trying to de-risk the decision-making process, right? By providing, okay, so we've got this feature and this helps people do that, right? This has got this feature and it'll help people do that. This has got this feature and so this will help people do this, right? So it's like that. You throw as much stuff as you can at the wall and hopefully that some of those features and benefits will stick. Hopefully Darren will say, oh yeah, I really need one of those. That's great. But CRM is a good example here because, of course, most people use, 5% of their CRM?
Best, yeah.
Yeah. So nobody's buying it just for the Calendly link or for the scheduling. That stuff comes across as a bonus, as an extra. It stops you from buying it somewhere else. So the big challenge for founders is they need to understand that their sales team need to sell very differently to the way they've been selling. And that requires a bunch of different skills from the founder, because obviously they need to be then delivering a different message into the marketplace and a different approach from the sales team.
And so then conversely, the ones who are doing it really well, I'm guessing they've got a pitch deck that's back to front or front to back. But what does good look like? And are there any classic examples of the people doing it well?
Yeah, so there are quite a few businesses that do it really, really well. But there's a very simple methodology of the way that you need to think about going to the market. When I explain it, it'll make perfect sense. And we call it the 3 why scenario, right? So why should you do anything? Why do it now? And then why do it with me or us, or why do it with insert Shane's CRM business, right? And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, right? So before we start to convince people that they should buy us, they first need to have an understanding that they need to move from their current situation. I'm assuming everybody knows about status quo bias. So status quo bias is, I've got a preference to remain in my current situation. So why is that? Because people are lazy. And what I mean by that is human beings are lazy. We're designed to use as little energy as possible for our thinking, for our movement. That's the way we're designed. We're hardwired that way. So if someone provides you with an option to do something different, you're naturally going to think, the way that I'm doing it now is better. Or I'm uncomfortable with the way I'm going to do it now. All right, so until you've actually created a situation where the buyer says to themselves, you know what I'm doing now is not going to work. I need to find another way. All right, so why do they need to do anything? Once they've understood that that's the case, then you can start to talk to them about why they need to do it now. Because just because I know I'm 5 kilos overweight doesn't mean I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of gyms have made a lot of money by oversubscribing their amount of memberships because they know that a high percentage of people aren't going to come very often, right? But the fact that you've got your gym membership makes you feel good about being slightly overweight. I'm just using that as an example. So So just because I know I need to do something doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it now. When did most people give up smoking? The day the doctor said to them, Mark, your arteries are all getting blocked. If you don't give up smoking, you're going to end up in the hospital. You've got about 6 weeks to go. All of a sudden, if somebody that smokes for 20 years finds the motivation to stop smoking, right? So that crisis has become real. So the same thing applies to the way that we sell. Why do we need to do anything? Only then, once we've positioned it in a way that people go, yep, Shane, I understand that my current CRM is not going to help me get where I need to go in 2023 or 2024. Therefore, I need to make a change sometime in the future. Why do we need to do it now is the second lever that we need to pull. Most people automatically think about, pricing discounts. We'll give you 20% off if you move before the end of the calendar year. Okay? Not that great. Instead, what we should be doing is thinking about tying that to the current situation or the current economic environment. So when's a good time to do a CRM upload? When you're absolutely flat out, or when you've reached capacity and you're humming along nicely? Now's a good time to do it rather than when you're trying to grow. So once you create the headline pain of why you need to do anything, and you create the pain about why you need to do it now, people go, yep, I can see that I need to buy a CRM. I can see that I need to do something within the next 6 to 12 months. Only then are they open to hear all the reasons about why they should do it with you. And that's where the features and the benefits and piece comes into it.
And so you think that's the difference between the founder-led sales pitch and the non-founder-led sales pitch?
Yeah. So the founder-led sales pitch typically talks about the governance, the overarching challenge and how they've done this. And they're very much passionate about all the features and benefits they've created, the technical gaps. And the people that they're talking to, the other founders, the other CEOs or the managing directors, buy into that passion.
Yeah.
When you're selling to Darren's not interested in that. Darren's just interested in not getting the sack. So what does that sound like? So how do you create that piece of like, why do you need to do anything? You need to position it in a way that they really understand. So you've got to use their language. And by that, I mean, you might say something like, Darren, you know how every morning when you get in to see how much stock you've got coming in and you need to allocate it to jobs and you've got to have 4 different tabs open? My guess is that takes you about 25 minutes to get that done every day. Okay, what if you could just come in and that was automatically allocated based on the way that it came in through the warehouse on receipt? Would that make your day easier? Yeah. Okay. Right. So you've got to take those features and benefits and deliver that in a way that makes it much more palatable to the person that's the economic buyer. So Darren's the economic buyer, remember? Because the features and benefits and being the best and being the number one, seeing a hole in the marketplace is not going to pull the same buttons as what it would do with when you're selling to a founder or a CEO, because their risk tolerance is significantly different.
Yeah, I guess in that scenario, Darren's interested in what's it going to do for my bottom line, or in terms of operational efficiency or new revenue streams or something, and how do I do that so that I can achieve it without putting myself at risk?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so his main concern is making sure that he doesn't get the sack or he doesn't make a bad decision. So I saw some articles from Gartner, which I've really struggled with in the last 2 weeks, and it says that 60% of deals didn't go ahead, right? So it ended up in no decision, right? So this is technology bias. So most projects don't go ahead, they end up with no decision. So there's not a big enough compelling reason for people to buy the software or buy the technology. Out of those that do, 56% were dissatisfied with their vendor, dissatisfied with their decision. You know, that's a lot of people that are making the wrong decision.
Yeah.
So buyers need to be educated around what the best way to buy. And that's a big part of the selling piece for me.
And so then, we've kind of talked through what does bad and good look like. And I think you've largely provided what's the steps for success. When you're talking to your clients specifically, like how do you approach this and how do you help them out?
Okay, so what we need to do firstly is make sure we've got the value prop right, and we're not reaching out saying some version of, we can save you time and money, because most business processes can be distilled down to that, right? Whether it be a photocopy or a CRM or foreign exchange, right? We can make it easier for you. We can do it cheaper, and we'll save you time and money. But that may well be true. But as soon as you start to use that language, all of our spam filters just go up, right? So we need to work on the value prop and make sure that the way that they're telling their story resonates. And the best way to do that is to, truly interview your existing customers and ask them, how's your day different from before to now using our product or service? And what you're looking for is things like when Margaret says, well, before I used to come in, I used to have to spend 15 minutes doing this, and sometimes the data would get wrong, and then that would mean we'd ship the wrong product, and then we'd have to send that back and then send another one. And then you go, but now we don't have to do that because the CRM's got the labeling software included, and that happens less than 1% of the time, which is a massive change. Okay, then you go, okay, that's your value prop. So then you ring the storeman, you ring the COO, and you're saying, hey, do you guys ever send packages to the wrong place and have to get them back again? My guess is, right, so you can use those type of interview techniques from your existing clients, or perhaps even the person who's similar inside your organisation. So if you're selling to COOs, the COO inside your organisation. Get those stories and then distill them into the sales function. One of the good ways to do that, you can also go to your competitors if you've got them and have a look at their testimonials. But most people get testimonials that say, I really like working with Shane, who's a good guy. Really easy to work with. Right? So that's a character reference.
Yeah. Good for going to court.
Yeah. So when you do get testimonials from your clients, and we should all be doing that, most people are happy to give you testimonials or referrals. Make sure you get that granular detail about exactly what changed, because that can help you really easily create a value prop that's going to make it really easy to give to your sales team. Your sales team can then reach out to all of the COOs inside their total addressable market with that language. And the powerful thing here is that the COOs, when you get them on the phone and you start talking about that labeling issue, again, I've made this example, they're going to go, yeah, I get it, but we've just signed for another 5 years, so we can't move. But that's not going to be considered a spam call, right? That COO is going to enjoy that interaction and go, okay, there's a vendor that we probably could speak to sometime down the line. And they might well say, well, you know what, it was, but we've now got it fixed and we're doing it this way. You can then ask them a bit more detail about how they've managed to fix it. That gives you even more information for when you ring different CEOs. Hey, we've been talking to a bunch of CEOs and they keep telling us that this is a problem. Have you got it sorted out yet or not? And knowing that that's a powerful conversation starter, leading with their problems and their pains, your sales team can have I'm going to say more aggressive, but I don't mean aggressive, but a more upfront outreach program to reach out to COOs, knowing that the conversation that they have is going to be valuable.
So as to distill all of that, it would be, as a founder, it's time to recognize that the way your scaling sales team needs to approach the market is different to the way you do because they're not you.
Yes.
It would be then to encourage them to think about why this, why now, and why with you, and use language that resonates with the target in terms of the questions and the way they would describe problems and solutions and whatnot.
Yes, and stop focusing on making your salespeople product experts. They don't need to know all of the features and benefits. What they need to know is the problems that they solve for the clients at the direct intersection of where your products meet your clients. Right? They need to be able to talk about that. Because internally, the more we talk about, Shane, we've got a new software update coming up, version 6.2, and salespeople do this too. The more you talk about your pipeline, revenue, money, guess what the focus is when your salespeople get out into the marketplace? They start talking about the software update. They start talking, focusing on, revenue and deals. Talk about how you solve clients' problems internally, and your sales team will talk about them externally.
Mate, this has been super invaluable. You get any last minute pieces of advice, or have I just drained the tank?
Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot there. By far, the thing is good sales culture, right? And every business has got a sales culture, right? It's just whether it's good or bad. You've already got one. Good sales culture is when people talk about sales and revenue internally all the time in a positive way, particularly in positive the way how they've impacted their clients. So just make sure that there's an opportunity or there's a vehicle or a channel, for people to be sharing how your clients are benefiting from whatever it is that you're selling. So that could be something really simple like an internal Teams channel or Slack channel that was called customer insights or customer feedback, and get your customer service team and your finance team. Anytime some clients say, you know what, because they could be ringing to pay the bill, right? and they're speaking to Margaret in the accounts. By the way, I really loved that last update. It makes it so easy for me to do this. What happens now in most businesses? They go, oh, that's great. What's your credit card detail? Right? Instead, send that out to everybody in the organisation, particularly those client-facing, because it'll be much easier for them to be able to tell those stories as they get out into the market.
And probably good for the sales team to hear that, they're reinforcing the message around customer outcome rather than feature benefit. That's
exactly right. Yeah.
Mark, this has been fascinating. Thanks for your time. We'll definitely have you back because I think all jokes aside, definitely not the bottom of the tank, mate. Thank you.
Mate, thanks very much. It was great to come onto the Platform Diaries podcast. I appreciate it, Shane.
You've been listening to Platform Diaries with Shane Williams. To find out about how Shane enables digital businesses to scale, please visit shanewilliams.com.au. Thank you for listening.